So here is a cool thing I used on my last level. I'm not sure how many people know it, so I wanted to share my method. As you know, link groups are amazing and change the way you can build maps in Trenchbroom, right? So as a quick refresher, you can right click on any object or group of objects, give them a name, and then either press Ctrl Shift D or right click and create a link duplicate. Then you can move around this duplicate and rotate it, create additional copies, and so on and so forth. And now if you make a change to one of them, this change is replicated across all instances. Cool. So this helps a lot when creating like art passes, but also for entity setups. And in my last map, I used this feature a lot, but I ran into some problems when I wanted to create link groups for 45-degree corridors. Let me go ahead and create one of these according to Marky's video, which was the mapping on a 45, right? So using the same approximation, which means 4 cells which are on the standard on our standard grid correspond to 3 cells on our 45-degree corridor. And once we have the scale correct, we can go ahead and change the texture so it looks nicer and also is a bit easier to work with later on. So so now we have 4 by 4, but of course under the hood it's still 4 by 3. Cool. So now we can paste further instances of our wall piece, and in this part you can see like it never lines up perfectly. So what I'm usually doing is creating a trim as a filler. And so coming back to this corridor, so now there are like 2 methods in making it work, and one of them is creating another wall piece. Now I need to manually set it up. I would basically create it as similar as to the other one I already have, and then I would create a link group as well, and this would then be my 45-degree wall piece, right? But it gets a bit annoying because I would have to, how do you say, I would have to maintain both versions. And so whenever I wanted to make a change to this one, I would have to make the same change to the other one, and I'd rather not. The other method is I can use the rotate tool, but I hear you say, but it won't be on the grid if I rotate it, which is true. So let me go ahead and do exactly that. So I can enter the rotate tool by pressing R and then moving the pivot point to the edge, rotating it by 45 degrees. And now you can see, since we only used an approximation, the corners don't line up perfectly and I get super ugly errors. And so everything is screwed, right? But since we used like a super chunky 64 grid, we can now go further down 2 grid sizes to 16. Let me show the grid. And if we now use the scale tool by pressing T, we can manipulate this link group so that it lines up in where it should be. And as you can see, no errors. The wall is perfectly lined up, and it's exactly how we wanted it to be, right? So now we can copy paste, and we have our corridor, and we can use the same wall piece. And if I now go inside this one and make some changes, right, it's replicated across all of them, and there are no issues. But this approach has 2 caveats. And one of them, it only works to up to certain grid size, right? So now we are on grid 4, and as you can see, everything is still fine. But if I go further down, like to grid 2, every second step I'm getting these non-integer vertice errors, and if I try to fix them by snapping the vertices, like the other version then breaks apart. So don't go too small in your grid size, and everything should work. And there's another thing which makes it a bit difficult to work with. Let me bring back one wall piece I made for my last map. Okay, I can line it up first, and as you see, I have these two brushes which extend. Like if I go to the top-down view, first I need to make a link group out of these objects. Cool. And yeah, you can see I have two brushes which extend, and they will create problems. So normally, as you see, the bounding box of this link group is 32 units, but with these elements, it's 40, and 32 is a nice number to work with because it's on grid, but 40 creates huge amounts of problems. And anyway, let me go ahead. So now in this case, if I try the same method, I rotate it by 45 degrees, and since this wall piece is just two cells instead of 4, I want to clip up the floor as well, so it's just easier to work with. So I know exactly how far I have to scale this wall, and I can lower the grid size. It's like as much as I want, but yeah, as you can see, it never lines up correctly because like it's too granular to begin with. But what I can do now is I can go into this link group. I can create. I can select all these all elements which make my bounding box go wider than I want. Then cut them. Now I do my operation, 45 degree, lowering grid size and scale tool. So it's lined up perfectly, no errors. Now I go back to this link group and I press either Control Alt V, or I click on Edit and paste at the original position. Boom. And now, whoop, to lower the grid size, and now I have my setup where everything lines up. Cool. I just kept this other example, like the same is true for entities, right? Like so if you have a point entity, so this is a lamp, and if you have a point entity, it also makes the bounding box bigger, as you can see in the top-down view, maybe better. And this also can create some problems if it's not on a big enough grid size. So yeah, there you go. This is how I did a lot of my art paths on my previous map, and yeah, I hope this helps.